B, and our conclusion is also an E, for no M is P. And our middle term is the subject of our major and the predicate of the minor, which is a what?
1.
1. Thank you. This is an IEE-1 syllogism. Now, do we suspect that this one is valid or invalid? Darn good guess. Now, let's check out our distribution rules. The middle term distributes because it's the predicate of an E statement. So we have a distributed middle term. Now, the challenge will be that our E statement is the conclusion, so there's going to be two terms that have to be distributed above. M is the subject of an E statement in the conclusion, and it's the subject of an E statement in the premise. So one of our terms from the conclusion is distributed, but here's where the problem is. The predicate of an E statement in the conclusion will also have a distributed term. The problem is, it's the predicate of an I statement above. And I statements distribute which terms? None of them. Remember, A statements distribute the subject, E statements distribute subject and predicate, I statements distribute no terms, and then O statements distribute predicate only. So this one fails one of the distribution rules. That's why it's invalid. Some of you may have noticed it intuitively without going through the rigmarole here. But make sure you can go through the rigmarole. Now let's diagram this one. I'm going to make B our upper left-hand circle, P our upper right-hand, and M our lower circle, with standard numerical labeling for communications purposes. We're going to diagram the second premise first because it's the universal. How am I going to diagram no MRB? I'm going to shade 4 and 5. Thank you. 4 and 5 is no MRB, so we've done that. Now, some B or P. We're going to place an X somewhere, but the question is, where do we place our X? It's going to be somewhere in B.
2.
Thank you. Some B or P. Now, of course, 5 was also some B or P, but we'd already shaded that one out. So we clearly put this one in 2. Now, you notice the X isn't on the line, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's invalid. Let's take a look at the, let's read this. Has no M is P been diagrammed? No. If no M is P had been diagrammed, 2 and 5 would have been shaded. No. What am I talking about? My apologies. 5 and 6 would have been diagrammed. Sorry, TV land. This one's invalid because if it had been valid, then 5 and 6 would have been shaded, given that 5 and 6 represents no M is P. Now that one's not too difficult either once you get the hang of these things.